In a world where boxing reigned as the sport of pride and dominance, there was one woman who stood above them all. Known as the Boxing Queen, she carried herself with unshakable arrogance, believing no other style could rival her fists. With a flawless record and countless victories, she became the symbol of Western strength and power. Crowds cheered her name, not just for her skill, but for her fiery personality and confidence that intimidated anyone who dared to challenge her. She entered arenas like royalty, basking in the spotlight as if she were untouchable. To her, boxing wasn't just a sport, it was the ultimate measure of superiority. She mocked those who practiced other disciplines, especially the ancient traditions of martial arts like Kung Fu. For her, these techniques were nothing but outdated relics, unworthy of standing against her punches. Tonight, as the lights blazed and the audience roared, she stood once again at the center of the ring, prepared to prove that she was not only a champion, but the undisputed queen of combat. Before we dive deeper into this incredible story, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Your support helps us bring more powerful stories like this one to life. The arrogance of the Boxing Queen went far beyond her victories in the ring. She began to openly ridicule martial arts traditions, claiming that styles like Kung Fu were nothing more than slow dances compared to the raw power of boxing. At press conferences, she laughed at old masters, dismissing their wisdom as useless in the modern age. Her words struck deeply, not only in China but across the world. Practitioners of Kung Fu felt disrespected, their heritage mocked in front of millions. Entire communities that had preserved the discipline for centuries now found themselves painted as weak and irrelevant. The Queen's voice, amplified by fame, threatened to overshadow an entire culture of martial combat. Yet while many bowed their heads in silence, one figure among the crowd burned with quiet determination. Among the sea of faces that filled the arena that night sat a young girl, unnoticed by most. She was small, her frame delicate compared to the towering athletes around her. Dressed in simple clothes, she looked nothing like a fighter, yet her eyes carried a calm fire, one that spoke of discipline, patience, and years of hidden training. While the audience roared with laughter at the Queen's mockery of Kung Fu, this girl sat still, her hands resting quietly on her knees. She had grown up watching her masters teach the values of respect, balance, and humility, values the Queen had just spat upon. Deep in her heart, she felt the sting of every insult hurled at her tradition. No one could have imagined that this quiet observer would soon change everything. She was not there to enjoy the spectacle. She was there to defend the honor of what had been ridiculed. And when the moment came, she would rise. The Queen's words echoed like thunder, but for the Kung Fu practitioners present, they struck like knives. They remembered the lessons of their ancestors. The art passed down through generations, now reduced to nothing but a joke. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, some shaking their heads in disbelief, others clenching their fists in anger. One elderly master stood at the edge of the ring, his face lined with years of wisdom and struggle. He lowered his head, not out of shame, but out of sadness that the world had turned blind to the beauty of his art. Around him, disciples shifted uncomfortably, their pride wounded, yet their voices silenced by the Queen's overwhelming presence. It was at this breaking point that the young girl, sitting quietly in the crowd, began to feel her resolve harden. What was once humiliation was now becoming an unstoppable determination. As the Queen basked in the roar of her supporters, the arena announcer prepared to call the next opponent. Fighters had lined up, but many hesitated. None wanted to be humiliated in front of the world by the ruthless champion. That's when a small figure began to walk toward the ring. Gasps spread through the crowd. A young girl, barely more than a teenager, stepped forward with quiet confidence. She had no gloves, no sponsors, no reputation. To most, she looked like a child stepping into a lion's den. The Queen laughed, pointing mockingly, her voice dripping with disdain. "Is this a joke? Send her back to school," the Queen jeered, and the crowd erupted in laughter. But the girl's eyes did not waver. She climbed into the ring, bowed respectfully, and took her stance. In that moment, something shifted. The mocking voices grew louder, yet those few who looked closely saw something extraordinary in her calm posture. an unshakable presence that belonged not to a child, but to a warrior. The stadium filled with ridicule. Some whistled, others clapped sarcastically, and many laughed until their sides hurt. The idea that this fragile-looking girl could face the mighty boxing queen seemed absurd. Even commentators joined the mockery, their voices broadcasting disbelief around the globe. But while the world laughed, the girl's focus sharpened. Every insult, every chuckle only fueled her inner flame. To her, this was not entertainment. It was justice. She wasn't there to amuse the audience. She was there to defend the honor of Kung Fu, to stand for those silenced by arrogance. Her calm breathing contrasted with the queen's loud taunts. And in that moment, between laughter and tension, the air grew heavy with an energy no one could yet understand. The fight was about to begin. The bell rang, and the queen charged forward with her trademark aggression. Her fists cut through the air like sledgehammers, aiming to end the fight before it even began. The audience cheered wildly, expecting an instant knockout, but the girl didn't flinch. With a graceful sidestep, she avoided the incoming punch, her movements fluid like flowing water. The queen's fist sliced nothing but air, and before she could recover, the girl delivered a precise strike to her shoulder. The sound echoed sharp and clean, a sound that silenced the crowd for the first time that night. The queen stumbled back, eyes wide, more from shock than pain. No one had expected this. The laughter stopped, replaced by stunned silence. A murmur spread. Did she just hit the queen? The fight that was supposed to be a mockery had just turned into something entirely different. The queen regrouped quickly, her pride wounded. With a furious roar, she launched a flurry of punches, each one faster and more violent than the last. But the girl's movements were unlike anything the arena had seen before. She weaved, ducked, and redirected with breathtaking precision, her body a blur of motion. Every counter was a lesson in control. She struck only when necessary, sharp, fast, and clean. The queen's punches, built on brute force, began to look clumsy against the elegance of Kung Fu. The audience, once roaring with laughter, now sat frozen in disbelief. Commentators stumbled over their words. Fans rubbed their eyes as if trying to confirm what they were seeing. The girl wasn't just surviving, she was dominating with speed beyond imagination. The atmosphere shifted. For the first time, the queen looked uncertain. Word spread through the arena like wildfire. After the queen's stumble, several of her loyal fighters leapt into the ring, determined to restore her honor and crush the girl's defiance. They were strong, seasoned, and confident, yet what followed left the crowd breathless. One by one, the boxers charged forward, only to be met with lightning-fast counters. A sweep here, a palm strike there. Each move landed with surgical precision. Bodies hit the canvas almost instantly, their power neutralized by her unmatched technique. The spectators could hardly process what they were witnessing. Fighters who once inspired fear now fell like dominoes, defeated in mere seconds. The once deafening chants for the queen dissolved into stunned silence, replaced by gasps of shock and disbelief. The young girl stood in the center, calm as ever, her breathing steady, her posture firm. It was no longer a question of whether she could fight. It was clear she was rewriting the rules of the arena. Fury burned in the queen's eyes. Watching her loyal fighters collapse under the girl's hands was more than she could bear. Pride, reputation, and her entire legacy were on the line. The audience turned their gaze back to her, waiting for her response. With a sharp motion, the queen stepped into the ring, her gloves tightening as she prepared for battle. The atmosphere crackled with electricity. Commentators declared this the showdown everyone had been waiting for. The legendary queen against the mysterious girl who had humiliated her fighters. The queen glared at her opponent. "You think you can mock me in my own house?" she spat, her voice trembling with rage. The girl bowed respectfully, her calm composure only fueling the queen's anger further. The stage was set for the ultimate test, boxing queen versus Kung Fu girl. The crowd held its breath. This was no longer just a fight. It was a clash of worlds. The bell rang again, but this time the weight of history seemed to echo with it. On one side stood the Queen, embodiment of Western power, brute strength, speed, and relentless aggression. On the other side, the young girl, graceful, disciplined, the living spirit of Eastern tradition. The Queen lunged forward, her fists cutting through the air with devastating force. Each strike aimed to crush not just her opponent, but the very art she represented. Yet the girl moved with flowing precision, her body weaving like water around stone. She wasn't fighting with rage, she was fighting with clarity. Every movement told a story, East and West, pride and humility, raw power against refined technique. The audience felt the symbolism as much as the punches. This was no ordinary match. It was a battle of cultures, values, and generations. For the first time, even the Queen's supporters felt a twinge of doubt. The fight escalated into a spectacle no one could turn away from. The Queen unleashed her infamous combinations, jab, hook, uppercut, each one thrown with deadly speed. But the girl countered not with brute force, but with precision and timing. A single redirect of the wrist neutralized an entire punch. A swift, low kick destabilized the Queen's stance. Where boxing relied on dominance, Kung Fu thrived on adaptability. The ring became a canvas painted with two contrasting philosophies. The commentators could hardly keep up, their voices shaking with disbelief. "This girl, she's dismantling the Queen's rhythm," one shouted. The crowd erupted, no longer mocking. Every block, every strike, every slip of the girl drew gasps and cheers. The Queen's frustration grew, her attacks wild and desperate, while her opponent remained calm, centered, and in complete control. The clash of styles had become more than entertainment. It was a revelation. Sweat poured down the Queen's face as frustration clouded her precision. Each punch she threw carried more rage than strategy. The girl, on the other hand, remained centered, her eyes unblinking, her breath steady. She was waiting, searching for the perfect opening. And then it came. As the Queen launched a powerful right hook, the girl pivoted lightly on her heel, letting the strike sail past her cheek by mere inches. In the same motion, she delivered a lightning-fast palm strike to the Queen's chest. The sound echoed like a crack of thunder through the arena. The Queen staggered backward, gasping for breath. For the first time in her career, she looked vulnerable, human, breakable. The crowd erupted into chaos, some screaming in disbelief, others cheering wildly for the girl. This was the moment that shifted everything. The Queen, once untouchable, was now teetering on the edge of defeat. The audience could see it, panic flickering in the Queen's eyes. She had never been challenged like this, never forced to question her own strength. Her punches grew sloppy, her footwork unstable. Every move screamed desperation. She lunged wildly, aiming to land a knockout blow to salvage her pride. But the girl's defense was flawless, her counters sharp and relentless. Each miss drained the Queen further, each failed strike widening the gap between power and precision. The Queen's chest heaved, her gloves trembling from exhaustion. The once dominant champion looked less like a ruler and more like prey cornered by her own arrogance. The crowd, sensing the end, began to chant, not for the Queen, but for the girl who had stolen their hearts with grace, discipline, and an unshakable spirit. The Queen's reign was unraveling before their eyes. The Queen, drained and furious, launched one final desperate charge. Her fist swung wide, fueled by the last of her pride. But in that instant, the girl moved with flawless timing. She slipped past the strike, pivoted gracefully, and delivered a devastating kick that sent the Queen crashing to the canvas. The arena exploded. Gasps, screams, and cheers filled the air as the once untouchable champion lay sprawled on the floor, defeated. The referee's count echoed loudly, 1, 2, 3, until the final word sealed her downfall, knockout. The Queen's crown of arrogance shattered in front of thousands. The girl stood tall in silence, her calm presence magnified by the chaos around her. She had done the impossible, not just beating a champion but dismantling an empire of pride in one night. For a moment, the arena went eerily quiet. The crowd, stunned by what they had just witnessed, could hardly breathe. Fighters who once idolized the Queen lowered their heads. Commentators stumbled for words. Then the silence broke into thunderous applause. People rose to their feet, clapping and shouting in awe of the girl who had overturned every expectation. Meanwhile, the queen sat in the corner of the ring, head bowed, unable to meet the eyes of her former supporters. The world that had once crowned her invincible now looked at her with disbelief. In the center, the young girl remained composed. She had not come for glory or fame. She had come to restore dignity to the art that had been ridiculed. The storm had passed, but its impact would never be forgotten. As the cheers thundered around her, the girl did not raise her fists in triumph or shout in victory. Instead, she lowered her head and bowed deeply to the crowd, then turned to bow once more to her fallen opponent. Her gesture silenced the noise for a heartbeat. It was a reminder that true warriors seek honor, not humiliation. The audience was moved. Many who had come expecting entertainment now felt something deeper stir within them. This was not just a fight, it was a lesson. The girl's respect, even toward the woman who mocked her, elevated her victory beyond the physical. The cameras zoomed in, capturing the serenity on her face. For the first time that night, the queen raised her eyes, meeting the girl's humble bow with a mix of shame and reluctant respect. News of the shocking fight spread instantly across the globe. Headlines erupted: "Unknown girl defeats boxing queen. Kung Fu shocks the world. The humility that won the night." Experts debated endlessly. Was Kung Fu truly superior? Was this just an exception? Yet beyond the technical arguments, people were drawn to the moral of the story. Arrogance destroys, but humility elevates. Clips of the match went viral. The world watched not just a sport, but a story of values clashing under the spotlight. The girl's poise, her discipline, and her refusal to gloat resonated with millions. She had proven that strength is not only measured by fists, but by the spirit that guides them. Her victory was no longer hers alone. It belonged to everyone who had ever been underestimated, mocked, or dismissed. In the weeks that followed, the young girl became a symbol far greater than any champion's belt. Martial arts schools around the world saw a surge of new students inspired by her discipline and courage. Children who once felt powerless now had a hero to look up to, a reminder that greatness isn't measured by size, age, or reputation, but by resilience and heart. Even in the world of boxing, her victory sparked change. Trainers began to study Kung Fu, intrigued by its precision and adaptability. Fighters who once mocked traditional styles now sought to learn from them, blending East and West in ways never imagined. The girl herself, however, remained humble. She did not bask in fame or seek wealth. Instead, she returned to her training, knowing her journey had only begun. Her story was now a legacy, a seed planted in the hearts of millions that would grow for generations. As the dust settled, one truth became undeniable. This was more than just a fight. It was a story about respect, humility, and the danger of arrogance. The boxing queen, once untouchable, learned that pride without discipline leads to downfall, and the young girl reminded the world that true strength is quiet, patient, and rooted in honor. For every viewer, the message was clear. Never underestimate the power of those who are overlooked, for within them may lie the force to change everything. Before you leave, ask yourself, did this story move you? If so, make sure you've liked, shared, and subscribed to our channel. That way, you'll never miss more powerful stories like this one, stories that inspire, challenge, and leave you breathless.